Well, the showdown is finally upon us. President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping currently squaring off in beautiful Mar-a-Lago, Florida. And boy, oh boy, do they have a ton to talk about. The leaders of the world's two biggest economies are expected to spend a lot of time on trade. You might remember back on the campaign trail, President Trump was very harsh on China, claiming that they've been manipulating the global economy at the expense of the United States. But when the dust settles after their meetings, will we see more free trade or more protectionism? Let me ask Brian Brenberg, Associate Professor of Business and Economics at the King's College right here in Manhattan. Welcome back, Brian.
Good to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about free trade, which I think is essential to the intertwined economies between the U.S. and China. Seems like China is actually more willing to go the free trade route, but they also want to steal our stuff.
Yeah, that's the problem. China likes to talk about free trade, but they are an abuser of free trade principles in many ways. They steal intellectual property.
Explain that.
Look, I mean, companies that want to go into China to do business, China will say, okay, you can come in here and you can sell your technology, but we want an encryption key. We want a backdoor into your system. You know why? Because there's national security concerns. And of course, U.S. companies say that's bunk. You just want to have access to our technology so that you can use it, you can produce it at a lower cost without having to develop it and sell it back in the U.S. That's a real problem. The rule of law and property rights are fundamental to the gains from trade. If you don't have those between trading partners, then free trade doesn't work. So that is free trade. Exactly. So you've got that problem. You've got illegal state subsidies to state-owned enterprises. I mean, these are the kinds of things China does that legitimately are a problem for free trade.
Yeah, and that is a form of protectionism that it doesn't make sense to us in this country. And even when I was talking with theoretical physicist Michio Kaku about the billionaire space race in this country, it's because it makes sense to us that private industry would be at the forefront of innovation, but there it's pretty much all state-run.
Well, and it's moved away from that a little bit, obviously, over the past few decades, but we're seeing some moves in China where actually the state's getting more involved, and that, at the end of the day, that actually hurts the Chinese consumers. That hurts Chinese workers because you can't innovate in an economy that's planned from the top down. By the way, that's why so many Chinese companies want to be invested in the U.S. I mean, Chinese direct investment in the U.S. has gone up 10 times over the past 5 years. They're pouring in massive amounts of capital because they want to have access to U.S. innovation, and that's actually one of the bargaining chips the president has when he talks to the Chinese president. If you want to continue to have companies investing in the U.S., we've got to play by rules that make sense for both of us.
What is a win on trade for both sides? What does that look like?
Number one, it's not instituting these sweeping 45% tariffs that the president is talking about. Most of the trade between China and the U.S. is good for U.S. workers. It's good for U.S. companies. You want to preserve that. So the best thing the president can do is not get us into that situation. But number two, it's going after China in targeted ways, where they're stealing intellectual property, where their subsidies are illegal.
What about dumping things like steel in various markets?
Okay, this is funny because this debate is always look. It hurts U.S. steel workers. There's no question about it. It's a cost of trade. Number two, it actually hurts China as badly as it hurts the U.S. because they have all these misallocated resources, all these people, all this money poured into a steel industry where they can't produce products that actually earn a profit, so they have to dump them across the world. We should go after China for that. Their state should not be subsidizing private companies or public companies in their country. They just shouldn't be doing that. That's against the WTO rules. They've said they've signed on to this. They haven't been keeping those rules, and we should hold them to account for that.
Who gains more from these meetings?
I think the U.S. can gain more if the president does this right, if he's tough, but if he's targeted on the issues that matter. If he talks about trade deficits, he's gone the wrong way. If he talks about intellectual property, subsidies, tariffs, if he talks about censorship, these are the real problems in China. If he goes after those and he's tough on those, we can get some real gains that'll help the U.S. and it'll actually help in the long run China as well.
I mean, obviously, President Xi wants to save face when he goes back to his country. What does a win for China look like?
Well, what I think China's going to do is I think they're going to go to the president and say we want to institute new investments in the U.S. We want to create jobs in the U.S. They're actually going to try to give the president a quick political win. The president likes that. He likes when he can announce there's job creation. It wouldn't surprise me if you get a big announcement about Chinese investment in the U.S. that creates jobs. I hope the president doesn't stop there, though. There are real underlying issues. Don't get caught up in the superficial things. Go to the heart of the matter, and the heart of the matter is the rule of law and property right issues.
And it's delicious.